Hello everyone, I am Blankera. Today we're going to continue rigging Shalom from Path to Nowhere. I was just taking a look at everything that I did yesterday, and I think it's mostly fine. Just a couple of areas that I wanted to correct. And some of these little strands here that I was working on yesterday. There's like this little white highlight right in the middle here, and I felt like it got pulled up, so I wanted to pull it back down. And then I just wanted to fix some of the roundness here. Kinda squish this in a little bit more in some areas and make it a little bit rounder in others. Take a good look at everything. I think that was a bit too much. So let's pull it back just a little bit. There we go, something like that maybe. Looks like it got a little wrinkly in the process, so I'll have to fix that, but I think it's mostly in the right place. Still need to fix the highlight just a little bit. Got a little bit stretched out there. That tends to happen when I use the brush a lot. Things get a little bit stretched out. It's okay. Just gotta go in and fix it all up after everything is where it needs to be. Make those fine adjustments here and there. But it is a lot easier to make those big adjustments with the big brush instead of doing everything individually. And then I just go back and clean up afterwards. No big deal. Can't be afraid of making a little bit of a mess. Nothing would ever get done if I wasn't afraid of making a little bit of a mess. That's just how it works, you know? Lost the layer. There it is. Okay. I always remember vaguely where it is in my layer tree there, but there's a lot of things in it, so it can be easier than you might think to lose track of where everything goes. Alright. So I think I have the stuff that's showing looking good. Now I just want to take a look at the parts that are hidden underneath the bang here. Because they were looking like they were getting a bit squashed or stretched or something in these the interpolated area between the two keyframes. Yeah, just a little bit more. Because after all, how everything looks when it moves is probably even more important than how it looks when it's completely static like this. I gotta make sure that the movement all checks out too. Alright. So I think that's better. I think most of these strands actually look pretty good. Well, that's good. My past self had a good time yesterday, I can tell. Everything seems to be working out just fine. But then I also remembered that I completely forgot that this over-the-shoulder area existed. I'm not sure how I managed to do that, but here I am. Lost and confused. Alright, so let's figure out how to get this all looking good. Just gonna think for a second here where some of this should go. And that's always the question, isn't it? So far what I can tell is that there's like some strands right through here that look like they should be like way more over here. And then some stuff over here looks like it should be tucked in a little bit more. But yeah, this area right through here, this dark area, Looks like it should be a little bit further to the right, but maybe not quite that far. Moderation is hard, okay? I just kind of... When I start doing something, I just kind of want to go. So it's really easy to just kind of overdo it. That's alright. I can fix it. Just gradually get some of these things into place here and see what happens. Oh, that is way too straight. And the front view of had this nice little angle here, and I completely got rid of it. Let's put it back in. Let's get that back in. I don't want to change the angle that much, I just want it to be a little bit more to the right. Yeah, it's still a little bit too straight on that left dark area. Okay. That's probably about as good as I'm gonna do. I think I can clean it up a little bit, but I don't think this looks too bad. Might need to be a little bit further to the left, but for the most part, I think that these little strands are starting to get into the right place. And I don't mind there being a little bit of movement between this strand and this strand. I think that suits the kind of nature of the head turn here. Alright, I think before I can figure out how the rest of that looks, I need to hide this. And that'll let me straighten out the rest of the hair here. Oh, there we are. Yes, it is not yet time to adjust the claw. First, I must adjust the hair up here. The hair that the claw connects to. We're gonna stretch this back out a little bit. Looks like it got pretty scrunched up in a rather unpleasant way. Getting this all back up will hopefully help fix the movement in the interpolated layers, or the interpolated areas between the keyframes. No layers, just areas. Okay, now I'm going to turn the bang back on. Ah, that's why I did it like that. Okay. Pulled it out a little bit too far in straightening things up. I do still have to squish it all behind the bang itself. Squish, squish, squish. But hopefully that'll be enough. Just get it all underneath there. We'll see how weird it looks. Okay, no, I fixed the problem. It was maybe a little bit of extra work, but not too much. So I fixed most of it. There's still a little spot, like, right over here that I want to move this over here. You can just squish everything a little bit more. Smash everything together. Hope for the best. There we go. Hopefully those vertices aren't doing being all squished together like that. And I can see that there's some stuff peeking through somewhere, but it does not appear to be coming from this layer, so it's probably from this one. And I'll figure that out later, once I get to that strand. Right now I'm doing this clump right here. Don't want to get fixated on problems in completely different areas right now. Like I could, if my brain felt like it. Nothing wrong with getting a little bit distracted here and there. But right now, I just want to work on this area. I'm starting to kind of put the curves that are in the front view back in here. Everything got a little bit flat first time I ran through, it looks like. And that's okay. It got everything started, and getting started is more important than people give it credit for. And the body is being very distracting, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn off a lot of these things just so I can see a little bit better. So we're in floating head mode again. Must be nice being art where you can just turn off your body when it gets in the way. Body being annoying, just turn it off, it's fine. You turn it back on later when you need it. Wouldn't that be nice? Now I'm just going through and trying to get the nature of these outer curve really nice, and some of the other strands inside that I knew needed a little bit of correction. I try not to do too many things at once, but I kind of knew what I wanted here, so I figured why not. I was already in. Can do a little bit of work there. And as always, I'll be starting closer to the top. When I'm kind of doing big picture stuff, I tend to kind of go down the entire thing, but once I start getting into details like this, I do like starting at the top. Or rather, I guess I should say, I like starting at the point that has the most other areas around it that I can use as a visual reference for where something should be, or, you know, anchor points. So in this case, the top is connected to this bang that I know is correct, and it's also kind of connected to the chin that I know is correct. And so it gives me a pretty good clue of where everything should go, because if it looks right relative to all those other areas, then I know that I'm on the right track. Here, I think everything might have been a little bit too tucked in, so we were pulling it out. I think it needed to be closer to the chin. That's why I mentioned the chin as an anchor point, because that was one of the areas that I was looking at. And realizing, maybe it actually isn't in the right place. Maybe I do need it a little bit further to the right. Maybe it should move a little bit more. Like, I don't want to get too much movement because her head's not moving that much. But I want a little. We can afford a little. Make everything nice. Just gotta find that right balance. I don't quite feel like I found that yet, but I am getting closer. Much, much closer. The joy of trying things. Alright, I think the outer edge and how all that is moving is looking pretty good now. So now I'm gonna go in and start adjusting some of the details. Like the location of some of these inner strands and stuff. Try to get the angle on them better than they were. I think most of them are good. Like, I worked pretty hard on those two, and I think those are looking mostly okay. Just kinda gotta be de-crunchified. But other than that, I think they're looking fine. Basically, their location is correct. It's just they need some finishing touches. Some touches to make everything look a little bit smoother. Not too surprising given how much that area had to be stretched out a bit, so I think this is... For the stuff up here, it's another area where I need to hide the front bank in order to straighten everything out. Because while these areas aren't seen in the static final keyframe, a little bit of them is seen in the interpolated layers, so I want to make sure that they're all kind of moving the right way here. There, that should be straight enough, I think. Does the model agree? Is that enough? Yes, it does agree. Most excellent. Now I can just kind of go in and straighten out these areas, and then I'll be able to call it good. Once these areas just look a little bit nicer. It's still a little bit crunchy. Just gotta straighten them out a bit. Make the vertices a little bit happier. Straighten out the triangles. All that good stuff. I think it should be fine once I straighten out the triangles, honestly. Oh yeah, and part of it has to be a little bit stretched over here just to cover up the gap between this strand and this area here. Or I guess rather between this area and the claw. I think that should be fine. It's still kind of crunchy looking. A little bit. Let's do a little bit better than that. Yeah, let's hide that for a second. And I just kind of want to go in here, and I think once I eliminate some of the crunchiness from the edge too, that will also make the position of some of these other vertices a little bit more clear to me. Sometimes figuring this out is just a case of having everything make sense in my mind. The world is complicated, so taking it apart piece by piece can help sometimes. Okay, now let's turn this back on, make sure that... No, there's still a little gap right here. Basically, I wanted to make sure that everything was properly covered up here. But there's still a little bit of a gap there, so I need to pull everything down just a little bit. Make sure everything's covered up and that there are no holes. Okay, and then after all that, there's still something a little bit off in the movement over here. So let's turn off the bang again. This is going to look weird without the bang no matter what I do, just because of how I have to keep things hidden behind that bang. But I can hopefully get enough looking smooth that once I turn it back on, the interpolated layers will, or interpolated areas will be able to understand what I'm going for here. And indeed, that is much better. Alright, now I want to get this strand, and to do that, I think I want to turn off the claw for a second. Disabling the claw. we're gonna work on this strand. And there is a little bit peeking through here, so let's make sure this is nice and behind that side bang. Then I'll take the brush and kind of push things over a little bit. Because when I was turning the head back and forth there and doing my intense staring, I noticed that it was just kind of sticking out a bit weirdly. Sticking out a bit weirdly there. But this is a lot better. Even just a small change like that can make a pretty big difference. I do feel like a lot of what makes models look nice is just a lot of small details all adding up. That's why I pay so much attention to so many of these small details. I do think that they work together and eventually just come together to make something really nice. Something greater than the sum of their parts. And the next step is just fixing up this little strand. And it looks like some things are shifting upward. So hopefully fixing some of that up will fix some of the issues that I'm seeing here. Some of them, but not all of them. It's pretty hard to describe a lot of the things that I see here, but it's just... I don't know, I see something squirming a bit. It doesn't seem quite right. Something slides. Something seems disproportionate to all the other layers around it. That kind of thing. That's the best way I can describe what I'm seeing. All these tiny little things that I look out for. Alright, it looks like I'm gonna have to turn off the bang again, because there's some stuff in the interpolated areas that just doesn't quite agree with how I'm moving this area right now. Okay, and it looks like part of it might actually be from over here. That's probably fortunate, because it means that I have a little bit more flexibility in how I handle this dark area. Whereas before I was being very particular about it, because I wanted to make sure that I connected to the strand. But this strand can move around. And somehow, I forgot that. It happens sometimes. Yeah, there's still some kind of shenanigan going on there. Let's take a look at the mesh. So you can see, it looks like this in this position. And then... yeah, it looks like... some of them are sliding up too much, and some of them are sliding down too much. I think that's going to happen to some extent, just because I do have to keep it behind the bang. And that was a bit of a problem. But hopefully this is enough here. Yeah, I think so. I think it's enough. Now I can move a little bit further down into the problems that... like right there. I felt like it was a... I don't know, a little bit crunchy. This was just a crunchiness issue, and not a result of anything being in the wrong place. Just... I felt like it could have been smoother. And then here I want to bring some of this shadow back in. Kinda got kicked out more than it should, it looks like. After all, in order to make light areas shine, you really do need those dark areas. Those dark areas do so much. And contrast does so much for art in general. I don't want to neglect it. Don't want those shadow areas to feel sad, and like they won't be noticed. Because their place in the world is very important too. Got a little bit of shifting here, so let's bring these vertices on down. All the way down to where they need to go. Something like that. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Still got a little bit of shifting that I want to fix, but it's better. Overdid it in a couple of areas, as I tend to do, but that's okay. I'll go fix that too. It's still a little bit groggy, it seems. I slept fine, it's just... Look, I do stuff with my husband before stream here, and that couch is really comfy. So sometimes we'll play games or watch stuff, and the couch that we sit on is really comfy. And sometimes I just get super sleepy on it. And today was one of those days I got super sleepy. This time I didn't completely doze off, so I'm still just kind of groggy. My brain is just like, I don't know, I kind of wanted to doze off on the comfy couch. But I didn't let it, because I wanted to watch what we were watching. Today was more Mob Psycho 100, and then after we watched a few episodes of that, switched to watching someone play Arknight's Reclamation Algorithm. I haven't played too much of the new version, but I wasn't really that big a fan of the original. But I've heard that the new version is a lot better. From what I've seen of watching someone else play, it doesn't really seem that different, so... But, I'll take his word on it that it feels better. And I'll definitely play it myself at some point, just because I want all the rewards in the shop, naturally. Just haven't gotten around to it. I used to be a bit more into grindy resource gathering games when I was younger, but as I've gotten old, I have had less interest in them. I think it's funny how our tastes can change as we get older. Or maybe I just have too many things to do. I want to get into that. Although I think part of it for me was also just that I never really felt like you could build anything interesting with the resources that you were gathering. It's like, yeah, I could build at the base, but why? I never really felt like there was much purpose to it. The only thing to do is to defend against attacks. And I couldn't do that many interesting tower defense shenanigans with the mechanics in the game as they were given. really all I needed to do was make an ifrit lane and then put a bunch of roadblocks in the way, and the rest would be fine. At least that's how I felt about it. Not because the situation was, you know, simple enough. As long as they didn't throw freaking mudrock colossi at me before I was able to build up. I just never really felt like there was much to do with the resources. And that part doesn't seem like it's changed much. It still just seems like it's about gathering resources to make your own tower defense level. So I'm not too sure if it's gonna interest me much. I do appreciate Arknights trying all these experimental modes, though. There's been a few misses. There's been several things that just needed refinement. And then they've definitely had some that I thought were really good. Like, I am personally a fan of integrated strategies. Although I wasn't a fan of the original, KOB Funky Mist, when it ran for the first time. There were several things about it that I thought was really frustrating, and I'm not sure if it's just because I didn't have a built account at the time, or if there were more changes that I remember to Phantom and Crimson Solitaire when it came out. It can be hard to remember some of the finer details on these things. I do remember doing some of the ending grind with my husband of trying to farm out some of the endings, and with how RNG they were, that was pure suffering. But even for me, just going for ending 1, I remember that I wasn't super into it. But once IS-2 came out, I actually really liked that, so... Well, I say, I'm not sure if it was the game that improved it considerably, or if I changed a little bit, or if my account just got more built. And so I was able to handle the challenges better. Not sure which it was. Based on the reception that it got, I assume that there were a lot of very positive changes, even if I can't list them out off the top of my head because I can't remember Funky Mist very well. But I'm glad that they took the time to refine the mode, and that they continue doing so. Because it really does seem like it gets better with each one. I haven't had much time to play much myself, so I'm still stuck in the early parts of the reward ladder in IS-3. And I kind of want to finish IS-3 before I play too much IS-4. But I played a little bit of IS-4 with my husband, so I at least know roughly how it all works. We just use his account instead of mine, so... I think that's one slightly unfortunate thing about the nature of gacha games in general. It's like, I remember early on, my husband and I, and my account used to be very different. Like, my first 2 6-stars were Shining and Hoshiguma. One of the better healers, and then the best tank. So anything that I could tank and spank, I would win. But when it came to DPS, I had problems, and I actually didn't get my first 5-star anti-air sniper until like a year in, and when I finally got platinum. So I was using like Meteor the entire time to deal with drones. Whereas his first 2 6-stars were Angelina and Exusii. And, so needless to say, he didn't have much trouble with the drone maps, whereas I was generally tearing my hair out over them. So, it was kind of funny to contrast to our early games. But then as our accounts got more built and we started getting more units and grabbing all the meta ones that we could, they started to just become kind of the same. Now the only time they're really different is I have a taste for building weird-ass niche units that are really, really useful when they're good, but otherwise I don't always bring them. Like, my phalanx casters are probably the epitome of this. Whereas my husband had some trouble with some stages in the Hear People in Choose event, Hear People Sow. And I was able to solve them just by dropping Lynn somewhere. Because she was really good in that event. So that kind of thing is always interesting. And I do feel like as our accounts got better and better, that something was lost. Because our methods for dealing with things were often very, very similar. Whereas early on they were radically different. Alright, and while I was rambling about all that, it looks like we're finally getting into the claw. See if I can't get most of the claw done today. Oh, that would be pretty nice. It's like looking at the time, I doubt I'll get all of the shoulder hair done, but I wouldn't be surprised if I could get most of the claw done. Just trying to work out where some of the sliding that I'm seeing is, and I see that in the front here, there's this bump coming out, and I completely got rid of that. So that's definitely part of what I'm seeing here. Gotta put that bump back. That bump needs to exist in this world. It looks like there's some compression. I'm just taking a look at what's causing it here. Doing a bit of staring. Okay. I think I understand. Just need a little bit of time to stare and work it all out. After all, art is pretty complicated. So sometimes I just need a second to take it easy and let my eyes gauge what's happening here. Sometimes my brain claims one thing, and I don't think it's always true. I think my brain is just trying to simplify things and make things a little bit easier to understand, but while I appreciate its efforts, when it comes to art, you really do have to see what's actually there. And making your brain take the back seat to your eyes. And stop trying to interpret what the eyes are seeing, and instead letting them show what is actually there. Or trying to understand what is actually there. That's the first step to getting good at art. Gotta learn how to see what's around you. Train your brain to actually believe your eyes instead of just reducing all the images that it takes in into something simpler and more comprehensible. Tell your brain that you appreciate all its efforts, but the raw data is necessary in order to create something nice. Actually, it kind of reminds me of an interesting paper that I read at some point. I can't remember how I found it, but I was looking at links between autism in children and being able to draw these super realistic pictures. It was just really interesting because there were these kids that are like 3 or 4 years old that were able to draw like horses and stuff in proper 3D in perspective. Like it didn't look like the symbol of a horse. It looked like a horse. I mean, if you think about how an average 3-year-old would draw a horse, it would look flat, 2-dimensional, probably from the side, and that kind of thing, maybe with a leg up. But this person drew a foreshortened horse, like it was coming towards us. And it had, like, the snout in the right place, proper nostrils, the eyes were detailed and nice, and it was really cool looking. I couldn't believe it was drawn by a 4-year-old. And that girl ended up losing interest in art, and part of what was a little bit sad for me was that while they were treating her autism so she could function better in school, that didn't really go into detail about where on the spectrum this girl was. But after a while, she stopped being able to draw like that, and her drawings became more like what you'd expect from a child of her age. And so that was super interesting because it tells us that there's a link between our ability to communicate and understand the world around us versus taking in this raw data that makes us good at art. And so it seems like autistic children, or autistic people in general, just may lack this part of this filter that non-autistic people have, that simplifies the world enough that we'd see it more symbolically. It's like, think about what the average 3 or 4-year-old would draw. Like, say they're drawing a face or a house or something. Like, the face would have a circle, and then a couple more circles for eyes. Maybe a line for a nose or something. Or stick figures, where you just have a line for the body and then some other lines coming out for the arms. Or a house. I remember the thing that I've saw that when I think of child's drawings, it's the square house on top of a hill with a single window and a chimney coming out, with a circular sun with lines coming out of the sun in the upper right. And so that's, like, no house ever looks like this. You will never find a house in the modern day that looks like that anymore. I don't think any house ever looked like that. But for whatever reason, when we think of a house, that is the symbol that comes into most people's minds. Enough so that even as children, we draw houses like that. And so it seems like autistic children just don't have that same capacity for understanding and thinking about symbols. And while it might give them some trouble in other aspects of life, it makes them really good at drawing. Some of them, anyway. As always, everyone's unique, but I just thought that was incredibly interesting and maybe a little bit sad. Sad that as she started growing in social competency and some of these other aspects of her life, that she lost that ability to understand the world that well enough to draw it. But I hope she's happy that she's able to interact with the rest of the world better. Like I said, I'm not sure how far onto the spectrum that she was. I'm not sure whether she was able to, like, you know, talk to people, or if she was verbal or anything like that. But the paper didn't go into very much detail. It was just a summary. But I thought that was incredibly interesting. And of just how our brain reduces the details, and when you have a brain that doesn't do that, it makes art a lot easier. And so for those of us that do have a brain that does those things, you know, like most people, then you have to teach your brain to stop doing that. Or maybe instead of stop doing that, teach it how to slow down a little bit, take in those details, and then put them onto whatever visual format that you're looking for. For me, naturally, that's a digital canvas, but for some people it might be paper or a regular canvas or a sculpture. Whatever else. Honestly, I might find that paper again and give it a better summary. But this was something that I read like a couple of months ago, so couldn't quite remember everything about it. Maybe I'll go look for it today and drop a link to it in the comments. I think it's an interesting read, if you have the patience to read 80 pages of scientific journalism. Well, not journalism, but a scientific study. Results of various experiments. Meanwhile, I've just been poking at this loop. It's mostly cooperating, but it's having a little bit of trouble. I'm trying to help it out as best I can, but it doesn't quite seem to know what it wants. I'm trying to get a little bit more of it to show, because the head is turning, and it makes sense that if it's turning a little bit to the right, that you would see a little bit more of it, and so it would look a little bit bigger. But there's just something about right here that is just not jiving with me, and I'm not quite sure how to fix. Maybe it just needs to be a little bit thinner. Maybe something like that will do it. Yes, actually, that actually did help a little bit. Okay, so that probably means that I need to bring this inner area out a little bit. Yeah, I think that helped a lot, actually. Let's go do the other part of the claw. We did claw part 1, now it's time for claw part 2. Well, let's see, how should claw part 2 be going here? I think claw part 2 should be moving a little bit further this way. No, definitely more than that. Let's get a bigger brush. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Now we just gotta floof some stuff out. What do we have here? Not floofy enough. Absolutely not. And I can see it when I move things back and forth. It needs to be way floofier. Maybe not so floofy that I feel comfortable using the brush tool, but definitely way floofier than it is right now. Alright. Puffed it out a little bit there. Yeah, I think I still just need to move things a little bit more to the right. But I do think the floof helped. Always important to floof your hair. That's not really working, is it? Let's put it back. Okay, so what is wrong here? Let's put the body on for a second. So I can kind of take a look at the hair here. Do I like the way it's moving against the body? I don't know, with as much as everything else is moving, I do feel like it needs to be a little bit further to the right. But when I moved it a little bit further to the right, it didn't look very good. Oh, that's quite the conundrum, isn't it? Let's try again. Right now I'm focusing on this outer end. I'm going to try really hard to ignore this inner spot because it's kind of driving me crazy. But I'm just trying to look at this outer area. Get everything in a good spot here. Slowly but surely. I'm just going to keep trying things until it all works out. Not quite sure what I'm doing, not quite sure what I expect to happen. But I see something wrong and I'm just like, okay, let's try something and see if I can make that area in particular look a little bit better. My hand slipped. If I can make that area look a little bit better, then as I build up on all these small improvements, I should eventually be able to get everything to look a little bit better. And then everything will just be in the right place and it'll all magically work out and it'll be great. First we gotta do some science. And I don't know what to expect from any of this science. I really don't. Forgive me if I'm a little quiet. I'm thinking very hard at the moment. While I try to figure out where all this should go. Right now I'm actually wondering if I should show a little bit more of this area through here. Like, should this show underneath the bank here, whereas in the front view it was just hidden? That is my current question. Does this look good, or does it look like it's sliding? I think it actually looks pretty good. Okay. Now I'm still just kind of doing big picture. And right over here is squirming so much that I'm having a hard time ignoring it. So I kind of want to push it all back. Like I said, I was doing my best to ignore that area. And oh boy, did I have to try, because it was really squirmy. Okay, I think this is an area I can work from. Although it's looking like I'm probably going to have to finish the claw tomorrow. It'll give me some time to think about how I want to do this. And how I think that this particular head turn should look. But yeah, I think after I do my walk and get some food, I might go look for that, see if I can find that paper again. Maybe I'll see if I can find some other bits of scientific research on art. That honestly sounds pretty interesting. Maybe some cool stuff to talk about. Man, forget having cool stuff to talk about. Give me some cool stuff to read. Been reading a lot about art history too, and that's been pretty interesting. If I recall, there's already another VTuber in the art history niche. In all seriousness, I might talk about it sometimes if I see something that's... If I have some interesting thoughts. I am not a historian, let alone an art historian. So I definitely do not have any kind of background here. This is just me rambling about ideas that I think are kind of neat. Nothing more than that. I've just been in a bit of an art slump for a little while, so I thought I would take a look at what people that actually study art say. Like, study it in a different way than I do. And see if I can get some ideas from that. So far I'd say no, but it has been very interesting. Once I get past some of the pretentiousness that comes with it. But it is kind of interesting to see how techniques have shaped the ages and the kinds of materials they used. Honestly, I think it's pretty cool bringing the scrapings of paint into the lab to see what they're made out of, how they made their pigments. Because even though we do have all this technology and stuff, I think it's actually worth preserving some of the old methods humanity used to make stuff. I also feel it in some other trades like carpentry and metalworking and glass blowing and stuff. I think it's worth remembering how people used to do things. Even if it's not necessarily how we do it anymore. I still think there's value there. one thing I have found interesting in my little foray into art history was figuring out the effects that light and time have on these pigments that just make them change, and what the painting might have originally looked like when the artist painted it, and that it's not necessarily the same as it is now. Like the example used there was a picture of this girl in a dress, and there was a pattern on her sleeves that was blue, but when the artist painted it, it was probably purple. It's just the pigment faded in the sun. Can't remember the artist or the painting, the name of it off the top of my head, but it was still interesting. I was glad that I read it. Yeah, looks like I have a little bit of transparency here, kind of messing with my head. Let's turn the body off now that I have everything kind of lined up the way I want. Yeah, I see it here. Little transparent spot. Alright. Well, I think that's where I will leave it for today. I'll have a floating head for a little while. Until I finish this area. So, thank you all for coming. If you'd like me to take a look at your own creative projects, whether that be art, writing, coding, game design, or any other creative pursuit you can think of, feel free to message or at me on Twitter or Instagram and I'll take a look and maybe leave some comments. I'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.